Good afternoon, everybody. If everybody could please take their seats. Thank you very much. Welcome to the Transportation Committee meeting of Wednesday, October 24th, 2018. I'm Councilman Bonham, the chair of the meeting. I am solo for a few minutes until Ms. Martinez gets here. We will get started on some reports before she arrives, and then we'll be taking actions after she does arrive. There's a number of people who are in the audience who are here for the first time, whether it's on a PPD or some other public item. I want to give an advisory before this meeting begins for those of you who are not familiar with these meetings, that you are likely to unfortunately hear some hate speech in the course of this meeting. Not from up here, but from some of the general public comment. It happens a lot in this building, and it can be pretty harsh and difficult. I actually have earplugs provided over by the Sergeant of Arms, if anybody would like them. That will likely come during when I call people up for multiple public comment. And I'll give another warning at that time. Let us begin with item number one.
Item number one is the General Manager's report on programs and projects and recognition of departmental employees for outstanding service.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. As usual, we are here to recognize some of the outstanding staff from the Department of Transportation that delivers a tremendous amount of work and services to the city. So I'm going to start by saying that when I call your name, please stand up. LADOT's project delivery team we're recognizing today had an incredibly busy and very successful first quarter of the fiscal year with the grand opening of the Figueroa Corridor Streetscape Project, My Figueroa, and the Spring Street Redesign Projects. The following individuals are being recognized today for leading their extremely talented teams and ensuring these projects were delivered in timely fashion with minimal impacts to the traveling public. Matt Tallig, Transportation Engineer. Led the LADOT project delivery fans, I love it. Led the LADOT construction management team for these high-profile projects. The My Figueroa project is the city's first ever large-scale complete street project. In a project corridor known for frequent special events and ongoing redevelopment, Matt expertly managed the timely completion of this very challenging project while minimizing construction inconveniences to all the affected stakeholders. Matt's positive and can-do attitude was highly praised by staff of Council Districts 9 and 14, leaders of the South Park and Figueroa Business Improvement Districts, and operators of business venues along Figueroa. Manny Viramontes, traffic marking and sign superintendent 3. And Tim Conger, senior transportation engineer. Were both instrumental in not only the successful completion of the My Figueroa project, but also in delivering the installation of the Spring Street Redesign project. The timeline for the completion of this project was especially challenging due to ongoing utility work and movie shoots that were occurring hours before the street resurfacing component took place. Both Tim and Manny put in long nighttime and weekend hours to coordinate the heavy workload with their respective staffs, troubleshoot final striping and signage installs, and minimize traffic disruptions along this heavily traveled corridor. This effort took place just days before the National Association of City Transportation Officials Conference was held in downtown. With the eyes of over 1,000 transportation officials from across the country and the world focused on the city, Manny and Tim made sure Los Angeles looked its best with the implementation of these projects. And last but not least, Danny Solis, Signal Systems Supervisor. led the LADOT signal construction inspection team during the construction stage of both My Figueroa project and the Spring Street project. Because traffic signals are essential elements for bicycle signal functionality with protected bike lanes, his team oversaw the city's first corridor deployments of advanced signal controllers and signal cabinets in an efficient and timely manner to ensure safety for all street users. His leadership resulted in enhanced quality control towards a modernization of the city's traffic signal systems. Please join me in congratulating them for their outstanding performance and commitment to LADOT's vision and mission. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And congratulations, everybody. Continue the great work. You're pretty awesome. Okay, at this time, we will go to item number 20.
Item number 20 is a Krikorian, Bond, and Blumenfield motion relative to the impact of Proposition 6 to the city's transportation programs and projects.
Is there staff here on this? Good afternoon. Thank you both for being here. Mr. Herman and Mr. Spindler, this is your only warning. Good afternoon. Thank you both for being here for the presentation. Mr. Krikorian and I submitted this motion the other day. It'll be in council on Friday for a more detailed presentation, but we wanted to get a sense both from the city and from Metro about what is at stake when the voters go to the ballot on the 2nd with Proposition 6 and what the impact would be to the city and what adjustments we'd have to make, what projects would come into trouble if it were approved. So if you could give me sort of a brief overview and we can go into more detail in council on Friday.
Okay, I'm David Hirano from the Office of CAO. Council member, in the 2018-19 budget, SB1 funds are appropriated for a variety of capital projects. A total of about $34.5 million was appropriated for projects that were not authorized in the budget till January 1st of 2019. And the reason for placing a hold on those authorizations was because of the knowledge of this potential election at the time we put the budget together. So if Prop 6 passes and SB1 is repealed, I would anticipate that some or all of these projects would be significantly delayed or potentially not performed at all. So in summary, the projects are street reconstruction and Vision Zero project design. You're aware that we have 6 complete street projects in progress, and this would be the money that would be set aside for the selection of the next set of complete streets. There's $6 million appropriated there. In sidewalk repair access request acceleration, there's $10 million appropriated there. I think you're aware that under our sidewalk Willett settlement that we have to repair $1.4 billion worth of city sidewalks, and this $10 million is there to try and accelerate the pace that we could do this to benefit our disabled community. There's about $455,000 set aside for repair of concrete streets and $18 million set aside for a variety of different capital projects that are street safety related in across the city throughout the various districts. If you like, I have a detailed handout I could provide you that lists those projects.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
And there are project descriptions in our budget pages as well. So.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, Michael Turner on behalf of the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority.
Thanks for being here, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. SB1 is a very important funding measure for the county. We can expect to see about $1 billion a year in transportation funds coming into Los Angeles County from SB1. Metro was specifically awarded about almost $3 billion in funds that are discretionary to the California State Transportation Agency and the CTC for projects throughout Los Angeles County, and most of those funds are at risk if Prop 6 passes. The measure funds a variety of transit and highway improvements throughout Los Angeles County. It also is the first infusion of dedicated funds for goods movement that the state has ever made in the state's history. So that's a very important element to highlight. Within the city of Los Angeles, the SB1 is funding a number of important projects, including delivering the West Santa Ana Transit Project, which will connect light rail from southeast Los Angeles into downtown LA. We'll connect North Hollywood to Pasadena via new bus rapid transit line. It's funding preliminary studies for the bus rapid transit project on Vermont Boulevard from Hollywood to the South Bay, building the airport metro connector, making the Orange Line safer and faster, expanding a new light rail line into the East San Fernando Valley. Caltrans will also be including a number of important highway upgrades throughout the state. There are a number of improvements within Los Angeles County and the city of Los Angeles that include projects that ease congestions, make interchange safer, and make bridges safer. As I mentioned, this is the first infusion of dedicated funds for goods movement projects in the state. I don't have to tell you, but the San Pedro Port Complex is one of the busiest in the world, and there will be funds to support the nation's busiest trade corridors in our region. There's ongoing funds to help cargo move through the county and provide for clean freight corridors. I also want to mention that there's a huge amount of money that goes to cleaning the air from SB1. This is going to help us convert our fleet to electric buses. As you know, the board has directed that we convert our CNG fleet to zero-emission buses by 2030, and SB1 provides an important infusion of funds to accomplish that. In fact, the first electric buses are scheduled to arrive at Metro in 2019, and they will be operating on the Orange and Silver Line in the city of Los Angeles. Overall, SB1 creates significant benefits for the county. It leverages almost $7 billion in local and federal funds, creates over 30,000 jobs, has a significant reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by almost 16 million metric tons, and significantly reduces vehicle miles traveled throughout the region. All of those benefits are at risk if Prop 6 passes. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my remarks.
And impact on LAX, it has an impact on the Metro connector station?
There's usually two things that happen with a project, right? If funding is taken away, then the scope is either reduced or there's a delay. And if a delay is long enough, that can mean a project gets canceled. So depending on, if Prop 6 passes, the state's going to essentially have to go through a triage process to figure out. So that money may stay, that money could get eliminated. And if we have to replace it, it's going to come from some other project that's currently funded.
Right. Okay. And Mr. Hirano, if it were to pass and we have these holes, at what point do we begin to deal with it? Is it in the next FSR, or do we need to start dealing with it on an immediate basis?
I think I would expect that the council and the mayor would ask us to try and deal with some of it this year. Some of the projects that are on that list that you see are critical public safety projects. So we'd have to sit down and look at the remainder of our budget and see if there's a way to move them forward or not. Also look at our capital program and see if there are any savings that have accrued from other projects. And so I'm assuming that we would start that process. I don't know if we could be successful in 1819, or
Right.
a lot of it would have to wait for the budget deliberations for 1920.
Right.
So.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you both for the presentation. Look forward to seeing a more detailed presentation in council on Friday for all the members. And definitely the handout will be good for the members as well. Thank you. So to those of you who made the presentation, to those of you here, I'm going to hold this item on the table for a few minutes in the hopes of Ms. Martinez getting here. I'll take public comment when she's here. And I will move to item number 18.
Item number 18 is the DOT report relative to the revised rules and procedures for preferential parking districts.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm Michelle Caden, Management Analyst with the Parking Permits Division. The item before you today is a request to revise the rules and procedures for the Preferential Parking District Program. The revisions were made at the request of several council districts, as well as administrative and technical changes by LADOT to improve the program. Some of the significant changes are as follows. Number one, require all PPD requests to begin with the council district. Number two, enact a one-year requirement before residents can request counter petitions to remove or change current restrictions. Number three, revise the language to include non-traditional residential situations such as mixed-use blocks. And finally, upon council member request, to allow for the sale of up to 10 annual permits for the use of assisted living and temporary housing facilities, and the sale of up to 15 visitor permits for their residents. I will be happy to entertain any questions that you may have.
Thank you. I don't have any. Did you have any questions on item 18? Ms. Martinez has joined us. Okay. So,
Coming from the valley.
so that was an item I was going to have on consent. I was waiting for you. Just
quickly look.
Sure.
No, I do not.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you for the presentation. I'll do public comment in a second, so you can go back.
Okay,
Thanks
you.
very much. Okay, Ms. Martinez is here, so we're moving from a zone of being a one-member committee to having a full quorum or a functional quorum for this meeting. So we have a number of speakers who have signed up for multiple items. So that we can move other items on consent, I'm going to take the multiple item speakers at this time. And again, for those of you who are here at the beginning of the meeting or those who have just arrived, you are likely at this point to hear some hate speech and some pretty vile language. And again, if you want, there's earplugs over to the side of the room. So we'll now go to the multiple item speakers, and we will start with Mr. Spindler and Mr. Herman.
Yay. So that's good, thank you. And we went over and we got a couple of your little prophylactic penises, yes. So everybody, if you want a little dick, it goes over there in the corner there, called prophylactics. So what is going on here? Number 17. We're having LA City retard parking zone programs. These are people that are too retarded to have a garage to park their fucking car in, so we have to make special parking zones when we don't have any more parking. All you dumb transportation niggers have to do is simply make more garages and give 2 hours of free parking in your industrial and residential communities that have mixed use. The problem with people like Mike Bonin is that they want to make little things like little shaped phallic objects called a dick, rather than just build a fucking garage in the middle of these areas like Beverly Hills does, where you get 2 hours of free parking, and there's plenty of off-street parking for your businesses and your community centers. But these motherfuckers here don't want to build the garages necessary, so they take street parking and redistribute it to their rich, white nigger friends. And they use all kinds of fancy language like redevelopment parking zones, industrial zones, taxi zones, transportation tourism zones, and preferential parking. Build some goddamn new parking, and then we don't all have to run around like a bunch of white niggers.
Thank you. You now have 1 minute of general public comment for matters under the jurisdiction of the Transportation Committee.
Yes, so now You want us to put little tiny shaped phallic dick objects, which my friend here is holding, in your ears. For what reason? Discrimination based on the content of free fucking speech. Because why? You want to discriminate against a person's speech by putting a fucking sign up and encouraging people, especially children, to put little phallic-shaped things in their ears. This is a prelude to forced homosexual behavior by this gay chair. And we want Nuri, as a mommy, to stop Mike Bonin from encouraging prenatal and child homosexual forced activity using small dicks at his meeting. I don't want to see these dicks again at these fucking meetings.
Mr. Spindler, your
You
time is
dumb
up. Mr.
fuck.
Herman, you have 2 minutes for the various items on the agenda, followed by 1 minute of general public comment.
Okay. See, everybody knows that when you're disabled, most of the time, Joe's Parking discriminates against people like myself who have conditional invisible disabilities. So when I try to park in a restricted area by fucking jackasses that say they own the parking area, I said, no, you fucking white nigger motherfucker. That blue little sign there says, for the disabled and the challenged people, in which the city of Los Angeles challenges me with a disability, as Mr. Simon from the Department of Disability, for the record, is in here listening to my complaint. That how the fuck do they want to revise the rules and procedures to preferential parking when Los Angeles has discriminated against the disabled who are the reckless... What? My service dog says, fuck Bonin. She's right, because, you know, Miss Decker from the LAPD Police Commission threatened me because my 22-inch fucking parking RV situation. You know, where do you want people to fucking sleep, Bonin? You're pushing us out of Venice Beach, and that fucking stupid mayor, Eric Garcetti, doesn't know how to fucking add additional parking spaces for us in big trailer homes. And spending just $10 million on sidewalks is not enough out of $1 billion. You know what the mega lotto was? I could have built fucking a road all the way to fucking China and back twice, but unfortunately, because of my disability, I don't have a fucking job, so I have to come here and protest on behalf of disabled people. Now, as long as you got a fucking chongo in your house, in my house, I got a service dog. And she talks to me every night and tells me that we're going to keep living in our fucking vehicle as long as I don't get a Section 8 voucher and keep coming here to work. See, all you have to do is provide me what I need, and I get the fuck out of the city of Los Angeles, and I don't have to use these fucking type of terms of fucking words like this and get people fucking chongoed upset over fucking words that are free speech and call people bitches like the one who threw me out of the public meeting today, Mr. Englander. Now my general public comment.
1 minute for matters under the jurisdiction of the Transportation Committee.
You see, when I came in this morning on the train, I didn't want to sit by particular people that smelled like Mr. Bonin. They smelled like feces and urine. So I had to put a little piece of paper like this one in my hand next to the seat available for me because people in public transportation don't want to clean the fucking trains on a daily basis. And unfortunately, I, being a white nigger politician junkie, have to come to LA all the time to fight on behalf of the disabled's rights under the American Disability Act 42 U.S.C. 12101 ETSEQ. For the purpose of my Brown Act violations, I'm filing a complaint with my civil rights because when I'm on the fucking train, you got all these fucking black people and white people and Mexican people and fucking yellow people all in the way of me having a public place to sit on the fucking train. Have them pay the same as I have to pay for my fucking public parking spaces,
Okay,
please.
thank you so much. Next speaker with multiple public comment cards, Antonia Ramirez, followed by Brenda Blood, followed by John Walsh. Is Ms. Ramirez here? Okay, Ms. Ramirez has waived her speaking opportunity. Brenda Blood? Okay. John Walsh, I didn't see him here, so I think someone else is filling out cards in his name. Mr. Previn here? No, someone else is filling out cards in his name. Jack Blunt? Okay. So that concludes general public comments and multiple comments. To those in the audience, you got off easy today, believe it or not. What I would recommend, Ms. Martinez, is we approve on consent items 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 18 and 19, and 20. Oh, I'm sorry, we have one card on 20. Ms. Chavez Oriana?
Michael Turner. Michael Turner?
That's not what I have up on my screen.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
so we're good, okay. So we will approve the items I just listed,
Including 20.
2 through 10 and 18 through 20 on consent. All right, that brings us to item number 11.
Item number 11 is an LADOT report relative to the establishment of preferential parking district number 268 in Pacific Palisades.
Okay, we have some public comment on this. If I could call up Terry Simpson, Jim Moorhead DeRose, Nina Maddock, and Ted Weitz. Yeah, come on up. We didn't. It was a guy from Metro. We did it. Okay, Sergeant at Arms, could you please escort Mr. Spindler out? Because you were just disrupting the meeting. There's only one chair of this meeting, Mr. Spindler, and it happens not to be you. Please leave. Again, sorry for those who've experienced this. It's something we deal with in every single meeting of the council. If it's any measure of consolation, and it's probably not, the court decision that requires us to do so was written by a neighbor of yours in the Palisades. So please go ahead.
Hi there. My name is, thank you, by the way, and it's only set for 1 minute. Should it have gone to 2?
No, we do 1 minute per public comment. It was 2 when you have 8 different items like they did.
Oh, no.
Instead of giving them 8 minutes, we give them 2.
Want to start our clock again then?
Yeah, we can start over. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
My name's Terry Simpson. I live in the Palisades, and the restriction that's being presented is 2-hour parking from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and then no parking at all without permit from the 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. And I feel strongly that the overnight restriction is too much. And I was requesting that you table the vote on this until you have a chance to send out the DOT to look at it at nighttime. I actually, I understand the first time around that it actually didn't pass. There weren't enough. There were too many open spaces, and I would hope that you would have a chance to go back out and look at it again. I'm the parent of a special needs child, and we have caregivers and social skills groups and other people that come usually the late afternoon and evening, and this would be a really huge restriction on us of having to get visitor permits and day permits all the time, when if you to drive around, I think you would see that it actually isn't that bad in the evening, and I know my neighbors feel differently, but where we are, that's definitely the case, so thank you very much.
Hello, Councilman Ted Weitz. I live on Monument Street, very close into the new mall, and I was tasked with collecting signatures along Monument Street and also on Albright Street, also very close in. The results were 27 and a half of 29 households approved this. I also saw an email this morning from the one half. There was a husband and wife that disagreed. The one half now has approved it. So there's 28 of 29 houses. The only other house was under construction. Nobody lived there. It's really critical that we have these restrictions. As for overnight, there's going to be a movie theater that lets out at 1:30, the restaurants, and the maintenance crew from the Caruso project actually comes to work at 3 a.m. And we can't have automobiles starting up, horns going, alarms going that early in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Yes, members, Jim Moorhead DeRose. I live on 1100 block of Monument Street, as does Mr. Wheats, and I'm just here to express our support for the parking district. We're already severely impacted by the village. It doesn't even have full occupancy yet, and there's also the possibility of the farmers market returning, so we believe the impact is only going to increase and get worse. And I know I speak for nearly 100% of the residents on our block, being as close as we are to the village, that we definitely want and badly need the preferential parking.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Can I have his 30 seconds?
No, I'm sorry, we can't do that.
My name is Nina Maddock, and I live a little farther from the Palisades Village at Hartselle and Bashford, and we are directly outside of what will be the preferential parking zone, so we will be most directly impacted, and so we are opposed to preferential parking. I've already spoken to a number of people who are parking as far as our street. Those people are not employed at Palisades Village. They are employed at other businesses. For example, a business, the Topa Building at the corner of La Cruz and Sunset, their parking is not paid for. Additionally, we have single-sided the street parking on Bashford for 3 blocks, so that street is not impacted as well. Additionally, Hartselle has now become a thoroughfare for streets driving up and down into the Palisades, and the residents on Hartselle are opposed to the permit parking because all the permit parking will move everything to our part of the neighborhood.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilman, I have 14 emails from people that couldn't be here.
Oh, sure. If you could give them to the Sergeant at Arms.
I only have one.
Anybody feel free to submit.
Thank you.
I think most of them are in my inbox already, but.
Thank you.
And Sue Cole, come on up, Sue. Are there any other speakers here on this item? Okay. Hello.
Do I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
I live in the Alphabet Streets as well, and I just want to add that one thing I think that Nina, who just spoke, doesn't understand is that the PPD actually is inclusive of a lot of streets. The only ones that would be getting permits right now are probably 8 streets within the PPD, but those other streets included that are not getting it now will certainly have the opportunity to get it once the PPD is established. We already had big parking problems with everyone working in town parking in our neighborhood before, and now with the Caruso development open, it's just unfortunate that a lot of the patrons still choose to park on the streets. Employees, who are supposed to park underground are choosing to park on the streets, and it's become impossible for the people that live close to the project to have a place to ever put their own cars. So that's all I have to say. And you got the emails.
Thank you, Sue.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay. Is DOT here to report on this item?
Good afternoon. Ken Husting with LADOT, and I'm joined by Aaron Thompson of the Parking Permits Division.
Okay.
And we'll be happy to answer any questions unless you want a brief.
Yeah, so for PPDs, there was an established process which requires signatures from those in the impacted area, correct?
That's correct. And we did have a study. We go out there, verify that there is a parking impact and that it meets a 75% occupancy criteria, which it did meet. Our threshold is only 6 streets have to meet that requirement. 11 streets in this particular district did meet that requirement, which is indicative that there is a significant parking problem that expands well beyond the minimum requirement.
And the people who are seeking this circulated the appropriate petitions and got the requisite percentage of signatures?
Yes, they did.
Okay. What percentage is that again?
What's the percentage?
The required
For each
percentage?
petition?
The minimum requirement.
75%.
Okay, and they got in excess of that?
Exactly.
Okay, all right. Thank you both very much. So for those in the audience, the way PPDs generally work in the city of Los Angeles is while we take the sort of affirmative action to make it happen, it's more or less a ministerial process. If if it goes through the process in the neighborhood and gets the required number of signatures, we approve it. So this one has met those requirements, it has exceeded them, and so I recommend we move this forward to the council as approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to item number 12.
Item number 12.
Was that?
Did you approve?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Item number 12 is a DOT report relative to the establishment of preferential parking district number 272 in the Park Mesa Heights area.
Okay, and there's nobody here on this, so did we need to have a public hearing on this one? We did. Anybody from CD8? Do we need someone from CD8? Should we hold this? Okay, if DOT can come up, I think you can provide the requisite information.
Again, Ken Husting with LADOT Parking Management, joined
Good to
by
see you again.
Michelle. She missed being at the table, so she's back. So what we have before you is a request to establish a preferential parking district number 272 in Park Mesa Heights area of Council District 8. The PPD request did go through the process. Petitions were circulated to meet the minimum requirements. LADOT conducted a parking study to make sure that occupancy did meet the threshold and everything passed according to the process, and so we're requesting that this be approved.
Okay. Seeing no objections, the item is approved.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brings us to item number 13.
Item number 13 is a Buscaino motion relative to the feasibility of implementing the potential mitigations and related cost estimates for each of the proposed improvements presented in a May 2018 Kimberly Horn report.
Okay, we have a number of speakers on this item, so I'll ask them to come up to the table. I'll call the first four. Amelia Crotty, Sean Meredith, Terence Houston, and Susan Ambrosini. What's that?
Can we go in a different order?
I got to go in the order I got. So
I want to, hello, I'm Amelia
it'd be like
Crotty.
the movie Memento, and I'll just try to remember everything backwards.
You are here, great. Yes. My name's Amelia Crotty with Los Angeles Walks. I wanted to echo their comments, but I'll go ahead of you guys. So here to support neighborhood residents. So on item 13, really what I want to say is that Rowena works. The Rowena Road Diet, 3 independent studies have confirmed it's safer than it was. Rowena is safer than it was 5 years ago when the redesign was implemented, which was directly a result of a 24-year-old woman losing her life in a scenario that could have been avoided if the road diet had been in place. We understand Councilmember Rue's intent to address cut-through traffic and increase safety on residential streets, but neighborhood residents are worried they're going to lose the Rowena Road Diet in order to increase safety on side streets. The silver lining of this whole situation is that it's galvanized community support for safe streets, which we need to see in Los Angeles. And we recognize that DOT really does prioritize health and safety, and we trust that Rowena is not going to change. We look forward to seeing improved pedestrian safety on side streets in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean?
I'm Sean Meredith. I'm a resident of Los Feliz. Good morning, or afternoon. For 5 years, I walked my daughter to school along Rowena, and in the middle of that time, the road diet was implemented, and it was very clear to see a difference for walking, for biking, and even driving in that area. Speeds reduced, and I think the road diet's been a really great success. I attended here at City Hall in the summer the report that was laid out, and during which I asked the representative from Kinley Horn, which of these Rowena options makes it safer? And he evaded the question. He just said, these are just options for you. And so it was clear that they knew that these Rowena options, that 2, 3, and 4, were not going to make anything safer. And what's strange is that we need to keep this road diet.
Thank you.
Because I ran out of time.
Terence?
Hi, I'm Terence Houston. I'm a resident of Silver Lake, and I think the community overwhelmingly has expressed we don't need to make Rowena less safe in order to make the side streets more safe. In 2015, there was a Rowena town hall to see what the community felt about it. 2 out of 3 speakers spoke in favor of the road diet. And this is why they feel that it's so successful. 5 different studies show that it is. So LA.dot reported a significant reduction in injury crashes. LAPD confirmed those findings. Data scientists wrote an op-ed saying improved safety for all road users, especially pedestrians and cyclists, has clearly been achieved. An independent transportation planner has shown that crashes are down 21%, while citywide they were up over 8.5%, which is a 30% improvement. To put that in context, if we reduced injury collisions by 30% in LA County, 100,000 people wouldn't go to the ER every 5 years. I want to put that in a little bit more context because Rowena and Glendale Boulevard are essentially the same street the way Cesar Chavez and Sunset is. Where the road diet has been installed, there's been 0 injury accidents where speed is a factor, and there's been 6 on Glendale Boulevard right next to it simultaneously.
Thank you very much. Susan?
Yeah, hi. So I live on Rowena. I'm a homeowner. I know the corridor intimately. I ride the 92 bus downtown every day. I walk my kids to Ivanhoe. I walk to Trader Joe's, Gelson's. I use all of the eclectic businesses on the corridor, and I would just like to, in addition to all of the safety concerns I have with respect to reversing the road diet, I just want to remind the council members that this is not just about transportation. It's about building neighborhoods and building places. It's a fledgling main street for our little Silver Lake community, and all of the options, except for option 1, would undermine the sort of, downtown Main Street feel that we have. And I would really hate to see that go away. I know my neighbors and fellow, parents at Ivanhoe would hate to see that go away. And I think that we need to constantly remind ourselves that road diets and other roadway configurations are not just about transportation. They're about the communities that they lie in and the impact that they have on placemaking.
Thank you. Next 4 speakers, John Engelke, Lindsay Nolan, Michael Atkins, Michael McDonald. John?
If I may, I prepared some paperwork that may I give to the council members?
Yes.
Hopefully this doesn't cut into my speaking moment.
Yeah, start them right now.
Can you sort of stop it?
Yeah.
There
you go. Thank you.
I actually live on Rowena. I live in a new community that was recently built. There are 35 townhomes there. Could be 80 to 100 people living in the community. I would say universally every single resident and homeowner there is opposed to this. I mean, we are blanket opposed to it. There's so much opposition to it, it's hard to express. And I'm not even sure what's driving this, just that I think that there is a small cadre of Silver Lake residents who want traffic reduced in front of their homes that don't live on the street. I would like to have the streets where they live improved. Been a lot of talk about some things, some information going around that isn't necessarily correct. When the Rowena Road Diet was installed, it was installed as a result of a unanimous Los Angeles City Council vote that approved a transportation plan. And I wanted to mention that because there were many public meetings before this that are documented in the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council notes and minutes.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, I'm Michael McDonald. I live in Glassell Park, and I travel on Rowena daily by car, by bike, and on foot. I'm against any proposal to remove the Rowena road diet and any option to rework our city streets that does not put the city's adopted Vision Zero policy at the center of such effort. The Rowena road diet has been a success. It has made the street safer, more accessible, and less terrifying to travel on. The city should be considering extending this life-saving project on Glendale and Fletcher, not backsliding on safety at a time when our city is failing to meet its own goals to reduce traffic deaths. Thanks.
Thank you.
Michael Atkins. I live in East Hollywood. I commute on Rowena. I commute via foot, bike, metro to my job with Friends of the LA River. I've been relying on this piece of street safety for enjoyment, for recreation, and I see it as a crucial element to both making a community safe and also bringing people to the LA River without increasing congestion and parking issues in Legion Valley, Cypress Park areas. I think it's critical that we maintain our commitment to modes of transportation that do not increase carbon emissions. And time and again, whether it's in discourse in public meeting or online, many detractors of the bike network today say that we don't have a large enough network to incentivize usage. So at a time where that is a clearly described issue, we're thinking of removing some of the proven measures in place. So I just wanted to register my strong opposition to reconfiguring Rowena at any stretch that decreases safety.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Hello, my name is Lindsay Nolan, Policy Director with LA County Bicycle Coalition. LACBC works hard every day to make streets safer for all road users. This is why we have supported and will continue to support the safety improvements on Rowena. We believe safety projects should be data-informed and supported by the community. This is true for Rowena. The data shows the current configuration is empirically safer and is largely supported by the community. We understand that solutions must be identified and implemented to mitigate issues like cut-through traffic on neighboring streets, and we're optimistic that the competent folks at LADOT will come back with recommendations that address these issues while preserving the safety enhancements on Rowena. We urge the committee to approve this motion and move it forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our final public comment card is Luke Klipp. Luke, you still here?
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Luke Klipp. I'm here as a Los Feliz resident and who also had the privilege to serve my community the past few years as a member of and president of the Los Feliz Neighborhood Council. I wish to be recorded against the item unless amended per mine and others' comments today, including around the need to make safety the top priority for any evaluation of this street. In the past decade, LA City Council has approved a bike plan, a mobility plan, and a Vision Zero action plan, all of which are intended to provide safer options for people traveling in foot, bike, transit, and yes, even in cars. And the changes to Rowena implemented 5 years ago are an example of a meaningful intervention that has actually made the neighborhood safer. Rather than analyzing the half-decade-old intervention on Rowena to see whether it should be undone in some capacity in direct contradiction to the city's stated policies in its bike mobility and Vision Zero action plans, this council should instead be looking at what has worked and how to make these changes elsewhere in a city where traffic collisions are the leading cause of death for our kids. I ask that this body only consider a more broadly scoped look at the region and the interventions that we can and should be implementing under the scopes of the existing City Council approved bike mobility and Vision Zero action plans. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luke. Good to see you. Okay, if DOT could come on up to the table. And Mr. Herman, please leave. Please leave the room. Sergeant. The door opens out, sir.
What was that?
The door opens out.
That's not an invitation to come back in. Yeah, I'm disabled and I need some help pushing the door. You know, I don't got a little chocolate kid.
Your escort is right behind you. Hey, Dan.
Hello.
So let me just frame this one a bit. We've heard 9 speakers talk about the importance of safety We've actually received a letter from Mr. Rue clarifying that what he wants is this to be looked at through the prism of safety, and that's really the appropriate frame. Arena, as we know, was reconfigured because the prior configuration wasn't safe and claimed the life of a young woman, Ashley Sandow, in 2012, among other serious collisions. And we're here talking about this issue 5 years after the project was implemented because some in the neighborhood still have concerns about safety, and that now extends to Angus and Waverly, which lack some basic pedestrian accommodations like sidewalks and crosswalks. So I just want to acknowledge for those here that we received Mr. Rue's letter, and that makes clear his priority is finding the best safety outcome, an outcome that maximizes safety for the people who live and travel on Rowena every day, and that safety is the common denominator for everyone. I think it's also worth noting that the issues that Silver Lake is facing aren't unique. Citywide, we're seeing increasing vehicle miles traveled and greater use of mobile apps, things like Uber and Waze, and they're all sort of inundating our neighborhood streets. And we need to address those challenges head on with some appropriate policy responses, which are coming up on the agenda in just a few minutes. And just from my perspective, I think we'd be worse off if we respond to these troubling citywide trends that have nothing to do with the road diet by undoing some real safety improvements for the neighborhoods. So with that, Dan, can you describe how you'll be conducting the feasibility analysis that Mr. Rue is requesting?
Sure. We will be taking a look at the specific recommendations in the report to understand whether the geometry of the intersections allow for each of the options, and we'll be working with the Bureau of Engineering to understand what the cost estimates of implementing various improvements are, such as bulb outs and sidewalks and so forth.
And articulate to what extent safety is going to be the prism you're going to be looking at things through.
Safety is always our top priority in the Department of Transportation, so as we consider the options that are presented, we recognize both Councilmember Rue's recommendation and that of the committee that safety should always remain the lens by which we evaluate things.
And are you going to be looking at any data that you have access to now, like traffic counts or something that weren't included in the Kimley Horn report?
We'll make use of the data that we have available to us, which would include crash records and traffic volumes and so forth.
And we'll also be looking at further safety improvements that may not have been proposed in that report, such as those recommended by the Los Feliz Neighborhood Council?
We'll take into account all of the comments and develop recommendations when we report back.
Did you fill out a public comment card?
Do you want me to? For how many items? I just wanted to add, Salita Reynolds, General Manager, I think that there are certainly things that we can do to address cut-through traffic in the neighborhood, and those things are not mutually exclusive with leaving Rowena in its current configuration. And I think our goal is to take a very data-driven approach, to take a look at the broadest data set available and make sure that we uphold safety as the highest North Star that's going to guide our recommendations, but at the same time being mindful of things that we might be able to do to alleviate some of the speeding happening in the neighborhood. That those two things don't have to be tethered together. We can keep Rowena a very safe street and help manage some of the neighborhood issues at the same time.
Okay. Do you have any questions? Okay. All right. With that description and that mission statement and that framework, we'll recommend approval of the item and go forth and do the safety study. Thank you, Mr. White. Okay. That brings us to item number 14.
Item number 14 is the Buscaino-Bonin motion relative to amending the LAMC, which establishes regulations for the parking of vehicles displaying a for sale sign or placard advertising the private sale of vehicles on certain streets, to prohibit the parking of such vehicles on both sides of Compton Avenue between East Century Boulevard and East 103rd Street.
Hello.
Hello, honorable members of the committee. Thank you for your time and consideration of this item today. My name is Areli. I'm the constituent service representative for Councilman Joe Buscaino, specifically for the Watts District Office. Unfortunately, Senior Lead Officer Lopez, that covers this area, was not able to join us, so I'll be speaking on his behalf and on behalf of our office. So the item we're discussing today is placing no vehicle for sale signs along East Compton Boulevard from 103rd Street to Century Boulevard. At this point, that is our last resort. The problem with vehicles for sale in this area have been ongoing for quite some time now. They're impacting local residents and businesses who need the parking spots. I'll also note that this is a heavily trafficked street because it is where the Watts Library, the Civic Center, and our local St. Lawrence Parish and school are located. The issue is that new cars are placed every 2 to 3 days, making it impossible to do any citations. The vehicles are also contributing to blight and even crime levels in this area specifically. We have some photos with us today that I've shared with all of you, so you can understand the full scope of the problem. This has been ongoing all year long. We ask for your support in moving this item forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam City Attorney, I assume we have sufficient evidence to make the appropriate findings?
Yes, given the information on the traffic implications, blight and crime impacting parking, and that there are no other less restrictive measures such as citations available to curb the ills described.
Okay, so we will recommend approval of this item. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
That brings us to item number 15.
Item number 15 is the Krikorian Martinez Koretz Price Wesson motion relative to the development of a registration and permit program for drivers employed as charter part carriers, including transportation network company operators, and drafting an ordinance to authorize DOT to perform such a program that would include the collection of reasonable fees and charges to recover the city's costs in reviewing driver data.
All right, Marcel, fix our cut through traffic.
TNCs, right?
It's TNCs.
Oh, that was the other one. Okay. All right.
We can fix that too, though.
All right. Yeah. Mine are out of order here. Okay.
So again, the City of Los Angeles currently doesn't have jurisdiction over TNCs. That's something that the jurisdiction relies within the California Public Utilities Commission. LADOT does currently have a permitting function where we permit taxi drivers, ambulance drivers, also shuttle drivers as well. And so I think what we would be asking for is direction to report back on the feasibility of doing this, particularly as it relates to potential changes at the state level to enable us to do this.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I've spoken to Mr. Krikorian at length about this, and there's some significant concerns, and we want to figure out the full scope of what we're able to do. And what we need back in the report is what we are definitely allowed to do, what we might be allowed to do, and what we definitely need some legislative changes in Sacramento to do. The PUC has sort of kept the authority and not done a lot with the responsibility. So we need to try to figure out a way to navigate that better. And so we'll look forward to that report, hopefully within 90 days. Yeah. Any questions, Ms. Martinez?
No, I just wanted to make sure, so we are requesting DOT to go ahead and report back on possible legislative changes?
Yeah.
To give us more authority?
Yes.
Over the TNCs, okay.
So can I just, so the focus of this motion is really about driver permitting.
Right.
And I would say that that is one area that we could focus, but there are probably others that, you know, we would, we think about this quite a bit and have some other ideas and sort of authority that we might like to have.
Okay.
Can that be incorporated into the report back as well?
Sure.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah. Great.
And possible authors that can champion this in the state legislature as well.
Yeah.
You want to just call them out in the report?
Call them out. If you don't, I will.
That's the Martinez style.
That's the Martinez way. Okay.
No, I might have someone for you.
Great.
So it's not just about calling people out, but being
Sure.
helpful. Helpful, always trying to get to a solution. We try to
Thank
get
you.
to yes.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so that'll be the direction. Brings us to item number 16.
Item 16 is a Krikorian-Koretz motion for DOT report relative to the impact of mobile mapping application makers on the city streets and the feasibility of implementing the steps to reduce the volume of cut-through vehicular traffic diverted to residential streets.
All right, now it's your job to fix the cut-through traffic, Marcel.
Marcel Porras, Chief Sustainability Officer at LADOT. First of all, I just wanted to thank not only LADOT, but the other city departments that helped contribute to the writing of the report. I think what we heard loud and clear, and we've heard from several council offices that cut-through traffic is an issue, and so I think we wanted to proactively just level set some of the myths and facts around what the current relationship is between the city of Los Angeles and mapping apps. And so I think first off, I think we wanted to just clarify that there isn't currently any official relationship in terms of the way we share data. I think there are multiple departments who have relationships with the mapping apps and provide information and participate in data sharing. LADOT, for example, has the ability to edit, to update infrastructure that is being placed, such as stop sign, left turn restrictions, et cetera. However, that is just, that does not trump the algorithm that routes users of the app. Also, everyone is able to access data that the city provides from the ATSAC data. It goes into a larger regional system that Metro controls. The Port of LA uses the relationship with Waze to provide them with route information and closures around port projects. And then the Bureau of Engineering provides access via an application program interface for the public way reservation system, which provides current and planned street closures. I think one of the questions that was asked in the motion was in terms of identifying if there is a financial relationship between the city and the companies. There is not. I think one of the things that we acknowledge is that there are a lot of folks in the city that do use these app-based mapping services, and so I think there are opportunities to strengthen the relationship to provide real-time information. But I think the larger question about resolving cut-through traffic is still something that we'd have to spend some time specifically as it relates to the motion directing us to create a system for identifying impacted streets.
Sure. I mean, cut-through traffic has always been a problem. It's just that, Waze and Google Maps and Apple Maps and those apps have essentially put it on steroids. For decades, everybody in Los Angeles has been searching for a shortcut, and now everybody has sort of a magically appearing shortcut for everywhere they want to go. And everybody wants to get as fast as possible from point A to point B, except when it means in their own neighborhood. And, I can get a dozen shortcuts on the way home today, and they're all through somebody else's neighborhood. And, as Mr. Krikorian articulates, our street system is not set up that way. We have residential streets, we have collector streets, we have secondary highways, and Waze does not see it that way. So technology is way ahead of municipal government, it's way ahead of planning, it's way ahead of how we sort of deal with our neighborhoods. So this report, or this action, this direction, hopefully will be a way of thinking through how we can get to the next step. The mayor and a couple of us were at a press conference at ATSAC a couple years ago about the partnership between one of these companies and the city and how great it was going to be. And I don't think there's anybody who thought it was all that great. They might have, but we certainly didn't. So we need to rethink a different way of doing that and figure out what we have that they might want so that we can get something from them that we want. So 90 days, good for a report back? Yeah. Ms. Martinez?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So do we know if these apps have had any impact on crash data?
So we don't have
Have you
any,
seen any changes
Yep.
in terms of accidents at an unprotected left turn signal, for example? Do we know if that's made an impact at all?
I don't think we know that about Waze, not yet, but we do. There was a study that actually just came out today about Uber and Lyft, and that there's some evidence that Uber and Lyft, the prevalence of Uber and Lyft might have increased crashes by about 2 to 3%. That's nationwide, that's not specific to Los Angeles. But that kind of data and information and sort of analysis is just starting to trickle out because a lot of these services are relatively new, and we're catching up to try and understand the real tangible and intangible effects they've had on our cities.
The other question I had, so do we know if any of the app publishers have ever been found liable in accidents occurring while someone is using their app?
Not to my knowledge. Again, there are lawsuits about some of the other kind of new mobility providers, but not necessarily, I haven't seen any about the mapping companies.
And the other question I have, so do we really realistically have the ability to limit a specific street from being used on any of these apps? Do we really have that?
So I would say a couple things. One is no, because we have not yet created the groundwork and the playbook for us to behave the way that these companies are treating us, right? They're treating us like an app store where they can open up their apps in the App Store, and the App Store is our streets and our sidewalks. If you want to open up your app in Google or Apple's App Store, you have to sign a set of terms and conditions. And we need to start thinking about what that looks like more broadly, not just for Waze, but also for Airbnb or for anybody who wants to do something that's enabled by this in our city. But the second thing I would say is there's really two categories of challenges. One is cut through traffic, for sure. It's a neighborhood livability issue. It's potentially a safety issue. But the second set of issues deal directly with public safety, because when you use these apps, it's tempting to think that they own the entire story about the truth of what's going on in our city at any given time. But as we saw when they're sending people up and down a street with a 30% grade in Baxter Street, or sending people into the line of the fires last winter rather than around them, it's really the city that should continue to be the owner of managing the public right-of-way and infrastructure. So I think as we consider sort of what do we think of as impacted streets, there's these different categories, and that we may want to think about public safety specifically as a criterion that we use, and that we can turn streets on and off at different times of the day. I think that might be something where we would have some success in working with some of these companies.
So my final question is, so have you started conversations with these companies about crowdsourcing and edits to their own maps? I mean, have you begun those conversations?
Those conversations have been ongoing for the last 3 years since Waze really showed up in Los Angeles. And the challenge for them is that their mission is to make it easier to drive in the city and to save everybody 5 minutes. And our mission is to make it better for people to live in the city. And there are clear points of tension where, in order to continue to meet their mission, they can't meet ours.
And when you're talking to them, if you could educate them about the challenges of turning left onto Olympic Boulevard during rush hour, because they do not seem to understand it in these apps.
Yes.
Any major street, they have you going left on major places, or it is not possible. All right, so the direction of the committee will receive and file the motion and DOT's report. We will designate LADOT as the lead agency to negotiate a data sharing agreement with navigation application companies, working with other city departments, but DOT is the lead agency because we need to speak with one voice, and instruct LADOT to report back in 90 days regarding A, the recommended criteria for impacted street segments, including consideration of safety and collision data, Mobility Plan 2035 street designations and traffic thresholds, special events, emergencies, and engineering judgment. And B, the status of the negotiations with navigation application companies. Any objection? Nope. Okay, that is the direction of the committee. Thank you. And that brings us to our final item, which is item 17.
This is the DOT and Department of Disability joint report relative to the restoration of the city's accessible parking zone program.
Anybody coming up?
Speaker's cards, sir.
No, there's no public comment. Did anybody fill out a public comment card?
Yes,
All right.
great.
Okay. Come on up, sir. Okay, Joe Martinez.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Councilman, I'm here to support the boys in blue. We're behind one. No, in reality, the blue zones are definitely something that we need to spearhead. I've been paralyzed for 41 years now, and I'm the executive producer of the Freedom to Roll campaign. I'm also the CEO of the ADA Supreme program on the private sector, but the Department on Disability has been doing a tremendous job on spearheading these blue zones, and it's getting better and better over the years. The evolution of accessibility has become a lot more proactive here in Los Angeles. I've been a resident here, like I said, since day one. So I'm here to support and hoping that you would consider opening up more blue zones for our disabled community.
Thank you. All right, Brian and Steve.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
Not too bad, yourselves.
Okay.
Excited about the possibilities.
Who wants to go first?
I think DOT should probably open it up, if that's all right.
Hello, my name is Brian Gallagher. I'm with the Department of Transportation. I brought Crystal Killian, who's also with the Department of Transportation, with me today. We're here to report back on the restoration of the accessible parking zone program for the City of Los Angeles. This is a follow-up to a program that we started back on January 4th of 2017. That program was initially only offering the blue curb zones. We're now calling them accessible parking zones at the corners of the intersections. And we learned a lot of lessons once we started doing that program. We found out that about 80% of the requests that we received during the pilot project were for blue curb zones in the middle of the block, and we were not able to provide those initially. We also discovered that some of the standards and guidelines related to accessible parking zones had been changed or modified. So this was an opportunity where we just put things on hold for a while. We reevaluated all the existing standards and procedures, and we wanted to work with the Department on Disability as well as the Department of Public Works to identify ways that we could be more accommodating to the requests that were coming in for the middle of the block, and to identify ways where we could provide reasonable accommodations to those requests. So we've come up with a new set of standards and procedures, collaborating with the Department on Disability and the Bureau of Engineering to identify ways where we could provide more middle-of-the-block blue curb zones.
Good afternoon. Stephen Simon, Executive Director, City Department on Disability. One, what he said. This has been an extraordinary time of trying to bring a program back that the city desperately needs. It's been years that many people have been waiting to get their blue curb, and we just had to be creative and thoughtful about truly giving access to folks. So my staff's been working with several folks at DOT. We've come up with this proposal. We definitely think it allows us to do a couple things. One, really address the backlog, which includes some of the complicated ones where there's a lot of path of travel issues. It gives us a lot of leeway to work together with Public Works to address those. And two, it lets folks get out there and paint and post and get some blue curbs up and running again, if you will, as soon as possible. So DOD is fully supportive of the proposal that's before you.
Okay. Do you have any questions for Rick?
Yeah, so short term, how much of your backlog do you think you'll be able to get through in, say, for example, 12 months from now?
We're going to look at each other on this.
Yeah. I mean, from the DOT perspective, we've done a cursory review of most locations and categorized them as better locations and not great and maybe not feasible at all. Once the reasonable accommodation methodology is approved by council and DOD actually comes up, I think, with some better rules about what's acceptable and not acceptable, then I think in the next year we'll see a lot of progress.
And do you have any estimates of how much it would cost just to deal with the current backlog that we have right now? What's the estimated cost to get through that?
With BOE, I don't know that we can.
With BOE, we really can't give you the cost. What we're trying to do is break the request into definitely can do, might be allowed to do, and can't do. And the ones that DOT can do, it's just a matter of going out there, painting the curb blue, putting up a sign, maybe put a marking on the road. That's going to be a couple hundred.
So what's the percentage of the current backlog that DOT can go ahead and go out and get those curbs done tomorrow?
Do we know how many?
Can we get through those first? Are those going to take priority?
Right now, we haven't broken those down into the amount of work required on each one because we are kind of waiting for the approval to have the rules changed to evaluate the mid-block locations.
I'd suggest it's fewer than 20%, might be significantly so.
Well, we can start with those
but
if we can get those done today.
We'll definitely pick the low-hanging fruit first.
And who's going to bear the cost of any ADA ramps or sidewalk repair?
The ADA ramps, if we have to put in the ones in the middle of the block, it's probably going to be about $10,000 to $20,000 each, depending upon what's required. In some cases, we're required to take out trees, maybe relocate fire hydrants.
Who's going to pay for it?
Those ones will be done by the Department of Public Works, and it will be folded into other programs that they already have up and running. Right now, we were not approving any requests for the middle of the block. As part of this program, we wanted to identify ways of accommodating middle of the block requests and breaking them down into ones that are either easy to do or hard to do.
Okay.
The ones that are easy to do, we'll do right away. The ones that are hard to do, we'll either come up with an interim solution that we can offer them right away and then add it to the list of the other programs being done by Bureau of Engineering, or if we required a lot of infrastructure, it would just go to the program where they're going to be putting in sidewalk and curb upgrades.
Right. What I'd add to that is the majority we expect, because DOD has been also going out and reviewing sites, the majority where there is some kind of barrier is simply a sidewalk that's not a clear path of travel, traditional broken sidewalk, quite frankly. It's going to be part of the sidewalk programs. We're making sure that these requests match up where they've had a sidewalk access request, and it will be literally folded in. I do believe there is a consideration we need to have as this moves forward over the next couple of years of how to find capital to support not letting this take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years when we need to get these blue curbs in
And
place.
with that being said, Mr. Chair, there's also has to be the conversation about equity and making sure that all disabled people, no matter where they live in our city, but particularly in communities of color who don't understand the process or haven't been notified of how to make this request, that we make a special effort to try to reach those communities. I know Mr. Gallagher and I have had that conversation, and so I just want to make sure we do that because there's communities who don't understand how this works. I have neighbors who don't, that are constantly struggling in their wheelchairs to try to get home every day. So I just ask you to please look beyond just our surroundings and get to those neighborhoods as quickly as possible and make them a priority too.
And DOD is extraordinarily highly invested in the broad equity concept. I hope it's open for me to say that the two departments, at the very least, could certainly do a staff training for council staff to make sure all council officers are familiar with the program. And DOD does a lot of community outreach, obviously, with the disability community, and we are certainly folding it in.
I would appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez, for the questions and for that point, which is very well taken. This is great stuff. I'm impressed by how well DOT and DOD have worked together well. I'm always impressed when two agencies work together well. So impressed that I want to make sure that other agencies work together well with this. One of the things that is a constant source of frustration for me and most people I represent is when the city does something and the other half of the city family doesn't know about it, and then the other half of the city family has to come in and undo something that someone just did. You know, I don't want us working at cross purposes where we're going to be installing a curb cut and then we find out, you know, another department is out there, either going to be redoing the sidewalk or putting in a bioswale or, God forbid, we were supposed to be putting a bike rack or a curb extension there. So, because that would just compound the problems we've had. So I want to make sure that we're all sort of working together. That's as much of a challenge as anything in a city this big. So what I'd like to do is add some instructions to planning and public works as part of our approval of the LA DOT and DOT joint recommendations. So I'd like us to instruct city planning in consultation with DOT and DOD and building and safety to come back to us in 90 days on how APZs are addressed in streetscape plans to proactively include accessible parking and reduce conflicts with trees and street furniture. How APZs are addressed during the development review process, particularly for sensitive uses, including medical care and long-term health care facilities, adult daycare facilities, schools, churches, senior housing, and businesses that will require valet parking zones. And then I'd like to instruct Public Works in consultation with DOD to report back in 90 days on a schedule to train all relevant personnel in Public Works in the new APZ program requirements. And to report on how APZ requests that require capital improvements will be prioritized within the sidewalk repair program. And hopefully that will start us on that process of getting some interagency cooperation. So without objection, that'll be the direction. And Mr. White has asked me to reread, for the sake of the microphone and his sanity, the committee direction on item 15. 15 it was?
Yes, sir.
And that direction was to receive and file the motion and instruct LADOT with the assistance of the city attorney to report back in 90 days on the city's legal authority to implement the proposed regulatory program.
Thank you.
And that leaves nothing else on the agenda. And considerably sooner than I thought, we are adjourned.